We are moving on to our next session. The topic is the future of digital communicator, top social media trends, and more. So there's going to be a discussion and panel discussion with the moderator, Mr. Simon Beyer. Simon Beyer is a partner and chief strategy officer of Ingager, and he, after working for Google and Philips, is Simon now a partner at Ingager, the largest independent Facebook agency in Europe. Simon is a popular speaker, online digital marketing and digitalization. Simon has been speaking for Tesla, NATO, and BW, to name a few. So a year ago, Simon published his first book on digitalization. So we have a panelist, Mr. Thokozani, who will be joining us soon. And we have Taylor.
Hi.
Hi, Taylor.
Hi. Happy Friday.
Hey, to you too. So originally working in marketing, Taylor followed his passion for unconstructed data analytics to working in digital consumer intelligence. With experience designing insight strategies and implementation for global giants such as Samsung and HM, Taylor now works as a consultant in the Brandwatch strategy and insights team. Welcome, Simon, once again. And we have our next panelist, Yandaro Amien, founder, chief culture and learning officer, PopCon. So in 2020, he was listed as one of the top 70 rising personalities on LinkedIn and by marketing in Asia. Hi, Orlando. Yandaro, sorry.
Just call me Yan, it's easier then.
Thank you so much. And we have Ms. Thokozani joined us. Hi. So she's a seasoned Pan-African American, African marketing and communications executive with 17 years of marketing and sales. Branding, brand building, rebranding, marketing, campaign execution, product innovation, development and employee engagement, and management experience with an outstanding track record. So all over the place in an organization. So welcome here. Welcome all the panelists and the moderator. So Simon, it's up to you. You can take over.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. Sorry for my terrible moderating introductions here. I managed to lose myself over space in different connections. And thank you, Textile America, for inviting us all. As you mentioned, these are we are 4 different persons with quite different backgrounds, which I hope will enable all the viewers to take part of the various perspectives on how this digital ecosystem can change and what things that we actually need to consider. And what we will talk about today is we will talk about trends that we see within our different areas of expertise, and also how these trends might affect the role of digital communicators in the future. And I think that the previous session was a great introduction because Simon, the other Simon, highlighted the importance of understanding not only digital, but also analog and classical marketing. And I think that goes for which we will talk about as well, the importance of understanding the entire ecosystem and not just understanding one thing. So by the end of the session, I hope that everyone who's listening will have a better understanding for different aspects that you might need to consider and that might be relevant. So perhaps there won't be too many super tangible tips. There will more be thoughts that you can take with you going forward in your professional life. And I thought that we would start off with a bit more of an introduction of our expertise on things that the 4 of us find interesting. And then we will move over to talking about important trends that we see at the moment in our different fields of expertise. And there will also have some slides being displayed. But most of all, this will be a conversation between the 4 of us. And please shoot in questions if you can. We'll answer them during presentation, or we will answer them at the end. And in the third sort of agenda point will be future recommendations. What do we recommend companies, enterprises, I don't know, people that are in this line of business? But I'll thought that we go back to you, Taylor. Where are you at the moment?
I'm in London. I'm
great.
in London that is currently experiencing, I mean, I'm sure for people in many parts of the world, this is just normal heat, but the UK is going through a heat wave at the moment. So if at a random time I just pat my head, it's because I'm slowly melting, which, yeah, is one of those things. I suppose we'll get through. Hi.
You have a very diverse background, but at the moment, what do you work with mostly during the days?
Got you. So the simplest way for me, I guess, to communicate not only what I do, but also what I believe in is that I am first and foremost a researcher. So professionally, I'm a research consultant. On behalf of Brandwatch, my company, I work with brands in almost every industry, large and small, to ultimately try and understand the right questions to ask and then subsequently the right insights to gain from digital data. So within our industry, that's kind of labeled as digital consumer insights, but it means, guys, it's survey data, it's social data, it's forum data, it's ultimately all of these ways that human beings kind of touch the internet in a social way. We collect all that. We have incredible social listening capabilities and technologies, and we kind of collate all of that into this beautiful pile of data for ourselves, for our clients, and for businesses that we partner with to ultimately answer their questions. And it's an incredibly enjoyable experience. So if I'm a little bit overexcited when I talk about this stuff, it's that little part of me, that student, that does come out.
That's a very good skill to have, being curious and being engaged, I think. And you touch upon something which I found is interesting among all categories of brands and companies, like the amount of data that we have, because there's so much data out there. And that is a trend, at least that I experience when I talk to many companies, that we have so much data, or we think we do, but we don't really know how to use it accurately. Is that something you face with your customers as well, or clients?
Absolutely. It's what's the right way? It's like knowing that the sea is big versus actually trying to swim the sea to a certain extent. You know, like there's a difference between knowing how far away the moon is, but then actually having to go to the moon. It's the same with data. There's so much of it. At least just for Brandwatch and the data that we have kind of archived there to use, we have trillions of posts, like literally trillions. It's terrifying to think of how much that is, because it can be overwhelming. And brands that work with this data, you know, even brands who don't work with social listening, but work with their own Google Analytics data, or they work with their own like in-house data. There's a real difference between kind of knowing how much you have and then actually being able to utilize all of it. So yeah, that's part of my role, is helping brands kind of take knowing what small steps to take to slowly grow the length and breadth and the versatility of the data and analytics that they have.
Yeah, and that is something I believe we will see much more of in the future, the ability to understand what data is good and what data is not useful. Today we just talk about data. Okay, thanks for that interaction. Anything else you want to add? Any fun facts about you, Taylor?
Fun facts about me, despite maybe what sounds like I was going to say, despite what maybe sounds like a British accent, I am South African. So if ever so slightly you'll hear like my accent switch, that's the true me coming out. It's about as fun as it gets.
Okay, good to know. We know when you get engaged. And I thought we move over to you, Toko. Is that the right pronunciation of your name? You're muted now. Okay.
Yes. No, thank you, Simon. Yes, it is the right pronunciation of my name. And I think, like Taylor, I'm quite excited to be here this afternoon. And my role at the moment is I'm head of brand and marketing for Standard Bank PLC, based out of Malawi. I'm sure most of you who Google Malawi, you'll find out we're known as the warm heart of Africa. When you look at my current role, basically the biggest thing I always say is it's about turning ideas into reality. When you've gotten some customer insights and use those insights to basically unpack and deliver a campaign that basically is about driving business growth. So I think when I look at myself, I say, number one, I'm a growth driver. Number two, I'd say I'm a catalyst. Number three, I basically bring the purpose of the brand to life. And then I'm also an innovator, because it's also very important for me in marketing at the moment to say, I cannot run without understanding what's going on with my customers. How do I actually target them with the right message, the right time, and making sure that it's actually personalized where I know them beyond a number. From a personal aspiration at the moment, I'm basically deep into understanding big data, AI, because I believe the future of marketing is actually digital. And if you don't actually become part of that conversation and understand that particular field, you actually become quite irrelevant. So I spend a lot of my time reading up on data, AI, virtual reality, and it's quite exciting to see what's going on there and what's possible.
And is there any specific trends that you see in your market or in your role at the moment or in the future that you find interesting?
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, there are several trends that are coming through, but one thing that I find very fascinating is, when you look at TikTok, I think when most of us saw TikTok, we basically didn't see it as a platform that would actually grow as quickly as it's done. And I think a lot of us always think TikTok is primarily for young audiences, but it's actually for a wide range of audiences. And I think I was quite impressed with the latest stats that are saying, the average user on TikTok stays there for about an hour. There are about 689 million users. It's topping the Apple Store. And for me, it's one of those things that as someone who's into brands and marketing, you cannot afford to ignore. I think the other one that really also I find very amusing, especially now for most of us are in the virtual world for so long, is basically video content. People are no longer into texts, and brands that don't understand that, you'll find that your messaging and whatever you create won't have that much impact. And I think the other thing that also one needs to note is that the videos have to actually be short and punchy to the point. Because again, if it's long, the attention span has gone down of a lot of people, and you want to watch something and get the message, within a very short space of time. So I think for me, that's the second one. The third one that also really fascinates me, like I said earlier, is AI and big data, where as marketing executives and also aspiring marketers who are coming through, it's very, very important to ensure that we're investing in the right technologies in our organizations, be able to be part of this conversation that we cannot ignore. Otherwise, will not be sustainable in the long term. Thank you.
Thanks, and I think it's interesting you mentioned TikTok, because just as you say, it's not a classical ad format. They even themselves say don't make ads, make TikToks, which is a good saying. But you working in the bank sector and financial sector, these worlds seems really far away from each other, and that is also, I think, an interesting bridge. Like, how can you convince the bank management that TikTok is the right area to be in? And how do you actually, as you say, convey a message in maybe 6 seconds relating to a lending offer or whatever it can be? So there are a lot of trends that happens, but then we also need to adapt them to different categories of industries. Thank you very much for that. And over to you, Jan. How are you doing today?
I just had my first COVID jab this morning, so I'm quite okay.
Good for you.
Quite okay, yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's
Where are you?
I'm based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia right now. It's almost 8:30 p.m. in Malaysia at this moment. I'm great. I'm one of the founders of PopCon. So PopCon stands for Popular Content. Here's a story on how we actually started PopCon about a few years back. I have almost zero knowledge when it comes to digital media, digital marketing, social media marketing. But what I've been doing in the past 18 years is that I've been working with people to develop their soft skills and also their leadership capabilities as well. And in 2016, I see a trend, and I felt that the industry is changing. And one of the things that I feel that was lacking for me personally at that time is that I don't have enough knowledge for me to basically create content, because I see that the trend is for leaders to come out there and start to create content on its own. So PopCon started as a community platform at that time, as a place where aspiring influencers can come in to the community to learn a little bit more about how they can develop their skill to become influencers. And we work with a lot of lifestyle influencers, traveling influencers. You know, when you talk about influencers, we have a lot of belief about them. And what I also noticed at that time is that in terms of the way they do things and the way I do things, very different. I'm not a lifestyle influencer. I don't do YouTube videos. But when it comes to leadership, so I'm a LinkedIn guy. That's me, right? But then I noticed that there was actually a gap when it comes to creating content as a business influencer, and that's how everything started for PopCon. So in the last few years, we've been dedicating ourselves to help CEOs, entrepreneurs, business leaders, sales professionals, and also employees in organization to develop the fundamental skills that they need to have for them to create content online, for them to network online. So while Taylor is working a lot more on the data side and Toko is working on the marketing side, I'm practically the guy who focuses on the human side of things, where I humanize the content and also humanize the interaction online, right? I think a lot of us have.
That's super cool. You have a really what I find inspirational title, Chief Learning Officer. Was it? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think that is brilliant because we all need to learn, continue to learn. I mean, visit conferences like this one, and just continues to learn. And I think that's something that's underrated still, even if we emphasize it today. So I think you're doing. So it's a really cool title, best title of the day.
Thank you. Excited to be here today.
And but would you say that there's a difference between social selling and what you teach or learn your clients?
We basically teach people a lot of things besides the marketing aspect on things. I think one of the few fundamental things that we actually teach in terms of how they brand themselves online and how they actually create their own story and also find their own voice as well. So what we notice is that as much as we think that the work is about the technical aspect of things, but what we also realize is that 95% of it is actually mindset, right? It's mindset. It's actually mindset.
Yeah.
A lot of it's mindset. Yeah. Why are we saying that? Because we know, and we based on our experience with a lot of CEOs and also business leaders, most of them know and understand the importance of creating content now, but for some reason, not many people are doing that. How come? Right? So I'm going to be talking from that angle to basically share about some of the trends that CEOs and business leaders are doing right now, in terms of how they communicate their brand and how they actually use social media platform as a way for them to basically talk about the brand and also push the brand out. So that will be my angle for today.
That is, I think it's cool, and it's also it shows how digital communication and social media has leveraged over the years. I mean, that you can run an agency doing what you do, and I expect that you pay yourself a salary. I mean, so you actually get some kind of income from this. This would, of course, not be possible just a few years ago, but it shows the importance of these channels and kind of that most people have struck on and realized, okay, yeah, it's from a business, but it's also for me. You need to have like your digital agenda, and also you need to have your physical agenda in a way of saying that.
Exactly. And for us in Malaysia, when the lockdown happened in March last year, it was a total lockdown in Malaysia. With our business pick up because suddenly people start to realize, hey, you know what, we need to be online. But a lot of people are lacking the skill to actually start And I think that's one of the things that we also push people to just start doing things. And that's something that I would like to share today.
And I think that goes for both businesses, but also for leaders. I mean, people are afraid to take that first step, and that goes for the banking industry that you represent, Toko, and also for research, taking decisions maybe on data. Sometimes people are afraid to take those first steps, but that was, I guess, one of the few positive things with the pandemic, that it kind of enforced everyone to actually do something, because we needed to leverage. But yeah, great to have you here on the panel. Yeah, I'm here actually in the south of Sweden, Sweden is in the north of Europe, so it's usually really cold, but now it's summer, super warm. I'm on holiday here in my parents' house, and when I'm not on holiday, I run an agency with Facebook and Instagram, but we also, of course, look into TikTok and all those kind of things. But my main mindset is on the Facebook and the social and Instagram, of course, but on the social side. But then I'm very interested in the whole mindset of digital entrepreneurship and so forth. So I have a wider spectrum of things. I think for me personally, learning is what I found most crucial over the last few years, because I realized, I mean, the pace of things, as we've discussed in these last few minutes, is just incredible. And if we don't continue to learn ourselves and teach ourselves things, then it's just, we're not going to be able to keep ahead of things. So yeah, we have a very varied group of people here. And I thought, after this presentation, we could move in and talk about some of the major trends that we see. And I thought I could kick off just from my perspective, the Facebook perspective, and that's part of my job, trying to not predict the future, but at least see what's happening in the future so we can adapt our organization to that. And one thing that is for sure that I see is that competitiveness is increasing. More, as you just mentioned here, Jan, previously, I mean, more and more people are coming online, and you also mentioned, Toko, in your markets, and Taylor seeing the same. And as competition increases, since the feed and the ad spaces are limited, we need to have even better content on there, and we also need to use the platform and the algorithm even better. And then to get there, we need to become more skilled, learn more. So I mean, competition, and that is something I think will be mostly harmful for smaller companies, because they don't always have the same resources to educate and learn and test. But it could also be harmful for large companies, because they might be not too eager to try new things. But I think competition is one big thing, and that will affect prices as well, of course, ad prices. So it will be bigger investments, which is natural. And then one big thing in Europe is privacy, because we've had GDPR, and now we've had the iOS 14, and there is also the cookie. Google is turning off the cookies. They were going to do that after this year, but now they're pushing it 1 year. But there's so many things going on with privacy that is just. It's something that people was like nice to have, but now it's moving into need to have, and that is a big shift that I see. But also, as you talked about, John, mindset, like companies need to focus on it and see that if we don't have this in place, we're not going to be able to run our business, and that is a big difference. And one other thing that I've seen a lot lately, and is related to what you talked about, Toko, with formats and creatives and so forth, because if you're going to have the user actually stopping, with Facebook call it thumb stopping power, stop on the feed, then you really need to have something that stands out to that user. So I think the creative process will be even more important as we continue. And all of these things that I mentioned now are kind of macro trends, but they also have effect on businesses and how they prepare for the future. And I thought, Toko, I know that you have some slides on the general status of social media landscape. Can you maybe share them for us? Because I think that would be a good introduction to create a common understanding. Are you able to share those without? too much hassle.
Yes, I should be able to share them.
It is always fun after 16 months in the pandemic, but we're still not sure where, and I'm totally the same. Okay, let us know
when you can see my slides.
Yes. It's a slideshow starting. Yeah.
Okay. So I think thank you for painting those macro trends, Simon. And I think like you're saying, all of us are seeing the same picture. I know even for us in the banking industry, the whole privacy issue has become a big issue, and it's something that is top of our mind, as we work on our plans, as we grow our digitization footprint. Also, I think for me, around what you shared to say, Facebook is about, how do you manage to stop, a customer or someone who's maybe doesn't even know about your brand, and then they see something about you. So I think very similar pictures across the continent. And I think all of us are looking at how do we make sure we're that brand that stands out socially. Today, I'm just going to share a few trends that I think all of us need to be watching in 2021 and just pay attention to what's going on with those trends. So I thought it's important that I just share a few facts to say, do you know that the average social media user is actually engaging with social media for an average of 2 hours per day? If you look at monthly active users across the different platforms, Facebook is at 2.7 billion, Instagram at 1.15, TikTok 689. And I think for me, the key is to say, like I shared earlier, TikTok receives the highest level of engagement per post, and it's what's happening. So it's important that we jump into these hottest social media trends and start unpacking them and actually looking at how we can practically apply them across our brands. I think in terms of TikTok, it is going to continue to take over. And as marketing practitioners, as people who are within the space, it's important that we actually understand through using our social listening tools and the best way to approach our consumers and what kind of content is going to hit the mark. So we should know that TikTok is not done in terms of exploding. And then there's also live stream. We've all found ourselves in this Zoom and FaceTime, Instagram live world, where all we do is, wear a pair of jeans and we're online, So it's very, very important that since everyone is actually in this particular space at the moment, your brand needs to get into action. You need to have a brand story that's so humanizing and it comes alive and addresses the consumer needs at the same time. I think the other one that's key is virtual reality. I think, we know that gaming is actually leading the charge when it comes to this, but I think it's also important that creatives come to light using this leading social media trend. Just think about it to say, if you could give your client or your customers out there a virtual reality kick-up of a brand messaging, where you're talking about maybe buying a car virtually, and someone actually has a full experience, and I think for me, as brands, we need to start paying attention to say, right now, people are paying attention to people who are able to tell stories with conviction that are real and that are relevant to them. The other one is video content. I think I had just put it out there in my preamble. Video content is the undisputed king of social media content. It's still dominating, and that's not going to change anytime soon. On Facebook, roughly 100 million hours of video every day is consumed. So, practically one needs to understand what is the nuances across each of these platforms you intend to upload a video to. You need to have an understanding of what kind of video fits where, how should you actually size it, and also who is the audience that you are looking at when you're actually projecting these videos to. So if you look at Groupon as an example, they do an excellent job with video content, and they really uniquely target unique aspects of consumers as they project themselves through video. And then Instagram stories is so key for strategic marketing. I think I've noted that a lot of individuals as well as brands are actually using it quite a lot, especially ever since the pandemic started. And you find that 50% of Instagram users learn about a brand's products through a story feature. And I think for me, it offers variety, it gives content a fresh perspective, and it's actually quite a rich source for brand marketing. And no one should actually be overlooking this. It's something that one needs to understand and unpack. I think the other one for me is, like I shared earlier, artificial intelligence, social media analytics powered artificial intelligence is something that you can't really ignore, otherwise you'll be left in the dust. And as most of us might be aware already, artificial intelligence actually allows you to capture every brand mentioned for the ultimate consumer. And also comparative and market intelligence, which basically will enable you to differentiate yourself and cut through the online noise, because we all know there's so much noise that's coming out of there. And also just make sense of the endless social media trends that we're seeing. And I think for me, this is one thing I'll say: be sure that your brand has it, make sure you invest in it, and make sure that your organization understands that it's important in this era to be data and digital led, and you cannot afford to ignore some of these things, because that's the way you're going to be able to drive sustainable business growth in the digital economy that we're living in. Thank you. I'll stop there for now.
Yeah, thanks for that. Interesting indeed, well summarized. You point out some interesting things such as VR and AI and so forth. And I think it is, for companies, it is crucial to understand that these things are happening, but then at the same time, it can be challenging to manage all trends at the same time, because so sometimes you need to also make decisions on what to prioritize as a brand, because it is hard to do everything. But then that goes back to, I think, insights and understanding, as we talked about, like what would be most useful for our brand. What I see from our clients now with TikTok, for example, most of them try it out as a fun thing, so to say, or like something to say that they have done, but not many actually think that they will get too much sales out of it. So that is also expectations, I think, is really important to address when you try out new things. And the same with VR in a sense, because I mean, that's not going to generate a lot of money at the moment, but so you need to allocate that to the right budget, maybe not to the sales budget, but to the research budget. I'm interested to see what you think, Taylor, about these different trends. What does your trillions and trillions of data points tell us?
I wanted to. It's one of those things where there's so much to talk about. I didn't want to interrupt. It was fascinating, and I mean, Toko shared like 3 or 4 points that all of them had so much rich ideas to explore. Like the first and foremost, this idea of those numbers of people on all of those platforms, right? Again, when we talk about like scale, and when we're talking about the moon and the sea and stuff, like to think about 689,000 or whatever people is one thing, or million or whatever it was, but to actually like have all of their voices and all of that data at your fingertips is a whole different world. And Simon, your reflection on knowing what to do with all of this data, or kind of knowing, you want to track trends. There are so many trends and there's so much noise. Like, how do you know where to start? I think that it's one of those challenges that realistically, all you need to do is apply some kind of structure, right? That whole idea of before you climb a mountain, just take a few steps. When it comes down to these trends, if we think about like all of these different platforms, all of these different people, they might be doing different things, and some of them are posting video, and some of them are posting comments, and some of them, whatever they are doing, they're usually doing it for similar reasons, like socially. We're usually trying to connect with others. We're usually trying to self-identify, kind of present to the world who we are. They're usually trying to get some kind of value, maybe information, maybe education, maybe a bit of fun, or they're trying to give value to others. They're trying to make their friends laugh. They're trying to make their parents happier. Like it's always the same reason. And while the platforms change, they might be creating a TikTok, they might be creating a YouTube video, they might be writing a long forum post. While the platforms change, the intentions stay the same. So if you can find how your brand, or actually, I mean, I'm looking at Jan here, how your voice, how you as an influencer, how you as a business leader, how you as a human being, if you can find how you overlap with those things that people are trying to do, then the platform kind of doesn't matter. And to a certain extent, like the noise doesn't necessarily matter, because like you're connecting with their motivations rather than trying to throw yourself at the wall like a poster and hope that it works. And I before I open anyone to debate with me on that, like this, what I find so interesting about the virtual reality point. I mean, I'm someone who has purchased virtual reality. I'm a big computer game nerd. So I've been there and I know how incredibly exciting it is. But for me, like virtual reality itself, whether a brand does a virtual reality ad or something like that, it's not the brand that matters to me. It's the idea that like that brand seems to care about the future. And I want to identify as someone who cares about the future. So I am going to start talking about the brand caring about the future because I'm self-identifying through that process. And there, I think like the virtual reality doesn't have to make money. If you believe as a brand that it's that future tech and future thinking and all of that is what you stand for, and that's how you want to overlap with your consumers, then it doesn't have to make money directly, because it's your identity that you're presenting to the world.
Now, I think you're touching upon a really important point there. I mean, because it can be short sales investment incentives, such as posting an ad buy now on Instagram, or investing in virtual reality. That's more a long term, because that will happen in a while. And I really enjoy when you mentioned the word structure, because that's something I believe in very much as well in reaching results. And Jan, I want to move over to you here. How do you structure the work with your clients? Because that must be involve a lot of structure, I assume.
It does. Now, there are certain things that I agree with, certain things I will want to argue with. Right. When you say that the platform doesn't matter, I will look at it from a different angle. I think the platform does matter, depending on the message that you want to send across and who you're targeting to. Right. I love TikTok, but at the end of the day, if my client is not there and the people I'm targeting is not there, then it will be a waste of time for me to spend a lot of my energy there. So one of the things that we usually work with when it comes to our students, with our clients, first thing they want to do is they want to identify who their client is, where you want to be in, right? That's one of the things we want to make sure. We really need to be very clear about our client first. Second thing is our own personality as well, right? Some people are pretty much a TikToker, okay? They get the message, they're very comfortable with it, and I agree with Toko. Video is the way to go in the future, right? But for some people, video is a horrible experience for them to start with. I mean, when you're speaking at the front of the room, it's different when you compared to putting a lens or camera and then start talking there, right? A lot of people are not very comfortable with that. So I think one of the things that we need to do first is that if we want to start something, is that we need to identify our strength first and start with something small. That's how I see it, right? I don't know if you guys are okay with this, or this is just my argument on this. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean from my perspective, we always test things, because we never know what's going to work. We have the same approach as you, of course. I mean, who is the target group? What do we think can provide value to them? But we never know for a fact, and because we have to try. And then so starting in that sense, starting small. I mean, you don't waste the whole budget in the first day.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I would agree.
Yeah, I want to reflect for two things. One, Jan, you're absolutely right, and I would clarify my own point by saying I do think the platform matters for the content. Where I don't think the platform matters is when we're talking about consumer motivations. Like
I agree with you.
That's where I think we're misaligned. But regarding this idea of testing, I mean, look, the one thing that absolutely brings all of our disciplines and all four of our experiences together is the absolute need for data, right? The idea that whatever we do, wherever we are, whatever the content is, whatever the approach is, like we must try, we must measure, we must understand, and we must reflect. And I think one of the questions, which I'm sure we'll get to later, but there was a question around like how the pandemic has affected digital communication. I would tie this point in there by saying, like, there's a concept in research called ecological validity, right? The idea of whatever research you're doing or data you have, how representative is that of the real world? Now, what's interesting in social media is there's so many biases. There's so many different, like, as you just said, the people who are on TikTok are usually TikTokers, and that comes with like certain perspectives, certain biases. As Thoko said, like we might think that they're younger, and part of good research is making sure that you understand that. What the pandemic has done that's so interesting is because we're all at home, it has cut out a lot of normal socialization, right? Usually our opinions come from the fact that we might go out with our family, or Simon, you know, you've gone to your family now, and over dinner, you might have a conversation and you get all this information and your opinions slowly change and you have new ideas and new insights. We kind of, like in lockdown, couldn't really get that in the same way. The way that we could get it is by being online, is by being on our phones, it's by connecting on Facebook, it's by suddenly joining TikTok. So suddenly this idea of ecological validity, well, the data that we now have digitally after the pandemic is even more representative of this flow of consumer opinion and how that's growing in perceptions and all of that, because this is now the outlet that people have to share those opinions. They can't do it with their friends anymore. So if ever there was a time to make sure that your data strategy is good and you're testing things, you're making small steps to echo everything that we're saying, but you're measuring them and making sure that they're the right one, oh, it's now. I mean, it was yesterday and it was the day before, but it's definitely today as well.
It's not tomorrow.
I think I just want to build on what Taylor has just shared. So in my experience, I mean, since last year, as a brand and marketing person, you cannot run without having a digitally led campaign, because you found that a lot of people are spending so many hours at home versus driving and going to places that if you're not digitally led at the moment, you really won't achieve the impact that you think just using traditional means. So I just wanted to add that.
And I think I totally agree, and I think we could spin on the pandemic question that was posted in the chat, because it is something that everyone around the world asks themselves. How is it gonna? Because we've seen changes. I mean, I've seen them here in Sweden, and I've seen them in Europe, and I've seen them in the States, reading about them, how e-commerce has doubled, tripled. But the big question, I think, is what will remain after? I mean, if things get into a new normal, which behaviors will remain, and how will communication, as we talk about today, might play a different role? I think personally that many have learned the need of being more precise in the communication, because we have so many target groups today. I mean, in Sweden, we have people are in these 75-year-olds buying online, and then they want to perhaps pick up the parcel outside the store because they don't want to go in the store. Then you need to be very clear in the communication that you can actually offer that. But I'm 39, so for me, it might not be as relevant because I could go into the store. So I think that will have will be more precise. And as you said, Thoko, more digital will be, it's not if it is, we have to be there, of course. But it will be interesting to see what remains. Live shopping is something that has been pretty big in the Nordics, and I mean, in China it has been massive since years. But will that remain when we can go back into stores? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And that, I think, is the biggest trend of them all. Like, how will our consumer behaviors and how will we as agencies and companies need to adapt to these new behaviors when we don't really know them? Taylor, do you have any insights from your data on that?
I do, and I want to bring in something that Thoko said as well. So this idea of, I mean, everything you're saying around e-commerce growing, I have data that presents the idea that as many as 58% of respondents to a specific survey said that since the pandemic, as new to them, they've increased the amount of time they've spent interacting with brands through live chat. Just that as a kind of like a new, well, I mean, it was always a touch point with brands, but it's exploded as a touch point with brands. And I think it was 91% expect to retain that kind of communications route. And the point that Thoko shared, that I want to tie it with, is this idea of Instagram, right? I think, Thoko, you had that beautiful slide of like the Instagram shopping and this idea of using stories or or using TikToks to kind of interact with people. Like it's part of this connection that we have, this digital connection that we're trying to generate with the world. We need to shop. Well, we need to shop. There's an argument, but we like to shop and we need stuff. So like if we're locked inside, or if we find it now, since being locked inside, we've developed such a convenience to being able to interact with brands and interact with shopping and interact with our life needs through the apps that we actually get entertainment from as well. And we get social contact from as well. And these apps with their R&D budget are so like convenient. The UI is great. It's all slick. It's all in the same place. Like all of these make for such a wonderful experience and such a clean, safe, like online shopping experience. And that absolutely is something that we're seeing in our research. And I imagine people can reflect on, like the fact that all of this is happening in the same place, and it met our COVID values. It met our like, I'm safe, I'm away. This brand, this company, they're adapting to my new environment by giving me their marketing and giving me their product where I am. All of this made for like a new set of priorities for consumers. And the brands that met them were the brands that excelled.
Yes, that is very, very true. And Jan, do you have any trends that you see coming?
I do.
I mean, everything is a result from a pandemic now, but digital and pandemic and social.
I would love to have someone to back up the data for this. This is based purely on my observation, right? I don't know, Taylor, maybe you want to do a research on this, but I think there's one trend that's actually doing really, really well in Malaysia right now. It's what we call social heroes. These are the people who are thought leaders, business influencers who are using the platform as a way for them to champion and also to build people through their messages. And I think a lot of people now needs these people because they're kind of like they are those people who are bringing up our voices, and also the people who are basically representing us in terms of our opinion and the way things should be in the future, right? The whole lockdown, people are depressed, people are at home right now, they have no idea what to do. But when you have all of these social heroes coming out and they are taking social media as a way for them to basically send a positive vibe and positive message across, we notice that they have actually become the people that is basically representing us. I can't back the data for this. I would love to have someone to actually do a research on this and say, hey, you know what, how many social heroes we have out there that's really making an impact out there. And this is something that's happening in Malaysia about a few days ago, where we actually have these 3 influencers that's actually fighting with each other about what is the best way for us to help people. And they are going viral in Malaysia right now, which is amazing, right? I don't know. Are you guys seeing this trend? Because I'm seeing that social heroes are actually the way forward as well in terms of digital communication, right? And we are seeing that a lot of these CEOs are also coming out there as well to basically voice out their opinion and also their thought in terms of certain topics and also certain opinions. Yeah. So
I think this is something that goes for this is one of few things that goes for all platforms, at least to my personal opinion, because even on LinkedIn, which is meant to be this super professional yada yada network, you have these sad stories about someone losing their leg and they still got a job and they won an Olympic medal, and those posts gets like 5 trillion likes.
Exactly.
So I guess everyone has a need to feel like a connection and compassion to, because that derives around a feeling, a positive feeling in them, and this goes back to value as we talked about prior. I mean, then the platform provides some kind of value because you get a positive feeling at least, and it's something that's generic across generations and gender and race or whatever feelings. And I do agree. I don't have the data. The only data I have is that like the likes that I see on these posts on LinkedIn, and the same. I mean, the viral things you see on Facebook as well. A while ago there was this young. He was maybe 5 years old, and he's in the States, and his younger sister was attacked by a Rottweiler or something. And he jumped in front of his sister and got totally smashed in the face, saved his sister, and he posted on that little kid. I guess got super viral because it has this really positive it's some kind of, I mean, it's a sad story, but it has a positive end. I mean, help other people and so forth. So yeah, I do agree with you on that. So that is settled. That is decided. It's so. A great guy.
Can I add something on it, or is that settled?
Sorry.
I was gonna. Is it settled? No, I'm kidding.
You don't need to back up with data. We decided.
The one thing I wanted to add, because I think it's just, I mean, it's not. It is based on data, although I can't give you percentages based on what I've prepared for this panel. But yeah, that note on I think like the influential voices coming forward, we've absolutely seen that in all of the research we've done across 150, 200 clients in the last like 12 months, right? The social values. I don't know if it's a generational thing. I don't know if it's a being at home thing, but like reprioritization has happened. People have spent more time considering what matters to them. We've seen an increase in conversation that's supportive of minorities. We've seen an increase in activism. We've seen a lot more companies, and I'd be so interested to hear from Thoko here, like talking about their corporate social responsibility in such a real way. And within that, what we've seen in consumer perception, because that's ultimately the business that our data is in, is people valuing companies that talk about what they're doing, not just what they stand for, because it's easy to say what you stand for, but give us action. And they value it even more when like a CEO steps up and says it, when a human being steps forward and says, this company that you know of, it's not, they stand for that, but also I, as a human being, I stand for this. It's almost like you put your reputation on the line, and people are finding that to be feel more truthful, seem more authentic. And the brands that have their leaders step forward to make these statements are the brands that get met with that positivity and that resonance and that amplification in such a real way. Like Thoko, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, so I think I agree with Yandaro and Taylor. Like, I mean, the issue around social heroes and humanizing your brand, I think it's become a very big trend where, you know, when a CEO steps up and basically demonstrates not just the bottom line, but the social impact that the brand has, especially now if you look at even around the pandemic, where, you know, people want to see people like chief executives showing that they've been vaccinated. How are chief executives and organizations, you know, stepping up in terms of supporting to government's agenda in the different hospitals? I mean, like for us as a brand across the continent in Africa, we've actually done a lot around, you know, PPEs, oxygen, you know, the works. And basically demonstrate that, you know, we are part of a community. Health is like, this is a pandemic that's impacting all of us. It's impacting us at a personal level, as well as at business level. And we are here because of you. So we have seen a lot of us, including ourselves, like I said, stepping up and stepping into this humanizing our efforts. And then we're also now doing quite a lot of discussions with the UN around, you know, demystifying the whole vaccine, the myths around vaccines, you know, and we're basically going to be deploying this across all our key channels, you know, like our branches, branch screens. We're looking at deploying it on our ATMs, where when humans get there, they will see a message around, go and get vaccinated. Yeah. So that's what I thought I should add.
Great, thanks for that. We've had, I think we've managed to display in a good way the variety of trends that are going on, and that trend will always happen. But as an effect of the numbers that you showed, Tico, in your slides, I mean, the effect of these trends are becoming much more bigger than it used to be. And in order for businesses to survive and thrive in this environment, we of course need to go back to the questions that we talked about briefly that have always been relevant, like who is our target group, and also what is valuable for them, and how can we communicate that value to them. I mean, those are the basics that we sometimes get lost with all these trends, but I think that is one important thing to always take a step back and ask yourself, like, what is value? And then we can use data and formats and so on. And what I also found interesting was that we talked about here about asking questions, because that's how you understand trends, and that's how it's in the communication and in the dialogue with the peers and with I don't know, your kids or whatever, and colleagues, that you understand and asking questions. And also, a friend of mine said something interesting that talked about active listening. I'm super good at talking, but I'm not always been really good at listening, and that is something that I try to work on. How can I listen better? And I think, Jan, you mentioned one of the most important things for both companies and for ourselves and for everyone else, and that is mindset. Because we must have a mindset of adapting to these trends. Because none of us, not Coca-Cola, no one can stop a trend. What you can do is you can adapt to it and act along it. But in order to do that, you need to understand what the trend is. So I think that is something that I think we should all, and everyone who's attending here should take with them as a summary, like, identify trends and then try to adapt and make the most out of them. And one part of this talk was also about the role of the digital communicator. So if you would advise, I don't know, someone who's doing an internship with you, or a young cousin, or someone who's interested in what we guys do, what would you say is most important, Jan?
I'm going to give some examples. I think what we're going to do, let's play some game as well. I'm going to show you slides, right? And let's do this for a while. So first thing that comes to your mind when I talk about influencers, right? What comes to your mind when I say the word influencer? What do you have in mind?
Paris Hilton.
Give me the description of an influencer. I think, Toko, you'll have the best description for this because of your experience at TikTok. What would be a criteria of an influencer? A successful one. Toko.
Yeah, so I think from where I sit, it's someone who basically has high followership and high engagement on their post, and someone who society can actually resonate and connect with. Say, if you basically position yourself using that influencer, the brand gets talkability and it becomes viral.
Okay. How about in terms of their outlook? Yeah, the way they presented themselves. Usually, you've seen TikTok, right? What would be the normal thing that you usually see?
So you see a lot of them are very, flashy. They'll be brand conscious in terms of what they wear, how they do their videos. They'll want to show you they're in it and they're connected and they're all at all these places where it's hip and happening. So I think those kind of traits come through very, very clearly.
Can I say it's something like this?
Yeah.
Young, good-looking lifestyle. That's the first thing that we...
Sorry, Jan, you haven't got a picture of me on here?
So, but here's the thing. Not everyone is like this, right? I'm practically not like this. Toko's not like this. Taylor, maybe you're not here because I don't think you're here. So that's how I see it. But I'm going to show you some people that we've been doing our research with, and we feel that these are also influencers as well, right? From different platforms. People like Jenny Doan, who came from a small town in US, about 740,000 subscribers on YouTube, a 60-year-old grandmother of 7, a 60-year-old mother of 7, grandmother of 22. She's a YouTube star, and she's basically promoting her business through YouTube, right? So business was falling down. Business was not doing really well a few years back. So what she did was that she decided, hey, you know what? I want to start my own video, and there you go. Started. Grandkids come and help. Now she's a YouTube star. And what she did is that she actually helped the industry to bloom in Missouri through the YouTube channel that she creates, right? This one, I think, Toko, you will like this person. He's from Malaysia, one of the highest TikTokers in Malaysia. Guess what he is selling? Curtains. He's selling curtains, but if you take a look at the video that he's creating, nothing to do with curtain. The only thing that he's doing when it comes to his video is good messages about how to treat people, right? Sending good moral vibes and good value. I'm going to show you another guy. His name is Azim Mustafa. He's working in one of the biggest telecommunication company in Malaysia. He's the Chief Culture Officer of Celcom. what is he doing on LinkedIn? He's creating content to talk about culture in a very, very interesting way, right? He has one podcast, 1 live shows, 3 content a day on LinkedIn, and he's basically killing it on LinkedIn, right? If you take a look at another person right here, now we are looking at entrepreneurs, CEOs, bosses. Chempaka Lim Chiawi is not the CEO of a company, but she is working with an oil and gas company called Schlumberger, right? And she is basically posting all her activities and everything that she's doing on Schlumberger as well. So if you take a look at it, I would say one of the biggest trends that we see is the way how all of these people are humanizing the brand and finding ways to basically talk about their activities and also at the same time pushing the brand forward as well. So those are some of the trends that we see. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. We don't have any more time today, unfortunately. It was super happy, super great to talk to all of you, and I learned a lot from you guys, and I hope we can stay in contact in the future. And I hope that everyone who watched this hour of trends managed to get some nibbles that you can use in the future. I would say the most important thing that I've learned during this hour is the importance of mindset, being curious, asking questions, and then after that, you can find the answers on what to do and how to become a good digital marketer, because it is something that will be super important in the future as well. So I want to thank Jan, I want to thank Taco, and of course I want to thank Tyler, our upcoming influencer.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, take care and have a great Friday.
Everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, panelists. Thank you so much, Simon, Tyler, Thokozani, and Yan.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.